Hey guys, I wanted to do a really quick post about struggles and hardships, and when we're really facing those things that could be life altering. I think about some of the things that I've gone through in my life. Of course, the whole journey with brain tumor stuff, and what took place with all of that, and what still I have to deal with. And I think about losing four babies to miscarriage and things like that, and how when I walked through those times, I did not understand what was going on. And this weekend, we were at the IF gathering. There was a lot of women who got together in Ashburn, and we watched all that together and went through the whole live stream, and it was amazing, and it was so great. And I'm still working through a whole lot of the stuff there that was taught, and so hopefully I can kind of be able to take pieces of that and relay some of that to you guys as well. But a friend of mine has been dealing with a chronic illness she was diagnosed with a couple years ago. And I remember last summer I was talking to her about how when we're walking through things like that, it makes us so weary, and it makes us so tired, and it makes us really not understand like why this is happening, and why would God allow that, especially for those who have been faithful to Him all their lives and have lived for Him and have really set their eyes on Him. And God gave me, He kind of showed me some things in His Word during some of the dark times that I walked through, and He reminded me of that when I was talking to her. In the book of Job, obviously Job had a lot. He was a very wealthy man, and within just the first chapter of that book, he lost everything. I mean, just the first like the first 12 verses are talking about what he has, and then how Satan came to the Lord with all the other sons of God, and he asked, God asked Satan where he was coming from, and he said, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? Then Satan said to the Lord, does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You've blessed the work of his hands and his possession, and increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. And so that was verses 8 through 12. And after that, he loses his family, he loses his property, he loses his animals, he loses his health. I mean, honestly, every part of his life is attacked, but he still lives. And throughout the book, there's for instance, in chapter 1, the last verse, 22, says, in all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. And so I think God makes us aware of that because, first of all, He wants us to understand that the emotions that we have when we're going through these struggles they're not necessarily offensive to Him. He made us emotional creatures, and He knows our hearts already. So I think it's okay for us to cry out and be angry. But also, what I really love about this first chapter is that whenever Satan came to God, God suggested this. This was not Satan asking. And that might be hard for a lot of people to understand and to believe that God would allow this. But Job was chosen for these trials to show how God can bring you through anything with faith, how He can absolutely give you the strength to endure whatever you have on your plate right now. So if you're dealing with an entire family who's sick right now, or if you're dealing with somebody who's dealing with a struggle like a chronic disease, or if you have a chronic disease and you're fighting that for all it's worth, or if you have marriage troubles and you can't figure out what's going on, you can't figure out how to fix it, and you just are at your wit's end, or if you're having financial things and you're just saying, Lord, I don't know what else I'm going to do. It may give you pause if you realize that if you've been faithful to God, and you have lived that life of just faithfulness to him, a lot of times he'll choose you to go through this so that the life that you live through this will be a witness to those around you. That's why God chose Job, I believe. I believe that he chose him because the people that he interacted with the rest of the book are, they have different perspectives on all this, but Job does not waver. He loves the Lord. He never curses God. He never walks away from him. He never, ever turns his back. And in the end, God brings back everything that Job had and then some. And so I just want to encourage you today that no matter where you're walking, if you're dealing with these kind of struggles and hardships, that God has a plan in this, and he will not give you anything that he will not give you strength to deal with. And so, and to think that he would choose you to go through it. I mean, you may go, God, why would you do this to me? Why would you do this to me? I know that's what I thought when I had miscarriage 1 and miscarriage 2 and miscarriage 3. I remember sitting in like the parking lot of the reproductive endocrinologist office after I was finally referred there, and just praying like, God, please don't let this happen again. Please don't let me lose another child. Please don't let me have to walk through this again. I just can't do it. I can't do it. And he reminded me once again of this thing in Job. And then I remember the day that I found out that I was pregnant with Colt, and he led me to Psalm chapter 34 and verse 4. Like, honestly, I never do this, but that day was one of those days I just opened my Bible and this is where it was, and this verse jumped off the page at me. Don't ever read your Bible like that. Don't ever think that's how God speaks to you, on a daily basis. But in this case, Psalm 34:4, I sought the Lord and he answered me, and he delivered me from all my fears. And I think my fear of not ever being able to give birth to a child again, and not ever being able to have a son, really kind of limited my belief that he would give me good things. At our church, we're working through a series on faith and working through the chapter 11 in Hebrews, and verse 6 talks about how he gives favor. And I mentioned that last week. I remember mentioning that in one of the videos that I did. But verse 6 says, without faith, it's impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So a lot of times we don't see those rewards. In fact, sometimes we see hardships. Sometimes we see struggles. But he will reward you, even if it's not now. Abraham didn't see the rewards he didn't see God's promises come to fruition right away. He didn't know most of his descendants. Moses didn't necessarily see everything that was supposed to happen. And whenever he led the children of Egypt out of the promised land, he never got to see the promised land himself. And so, there's so much in the Bible, there's so many promises that God gave that were fulfilled, maybe not in the time that they were, that the person they were given to necessarily noticed. So he will reward you. He will give you good things. And Job was lucky enough to have those things returned to him on earth, but everything was taken away so rapidly from him that I don't know how I would have dealt with that. I mean, I would like to think that I would have the same kind of resolve, but I honestly don't know. It's a difficult thing to say, but I just want to encourage you. First of all, if you're walking through that and you are his, you have claimed him to be your Lord, and you know Jesus, and you have the Spirit of God in you, then he chose you. He's allowing the enemy to throw these things at you to prove that you are his, that you are sealed, and that you will not turn away. And also because in that time of pressure, it builds that beautiful diamond. I mean, you've heard that analogy 1,000 times before, I'm sure. That pressure is what creates diamonds, and so it is a refining. It is about making something beautiful, and I think that that's what happens a lot of times, and that's how God brings about a stronger and a more mature believer after all of that. So anyway, just wanted to give you that today. I didn't mean for this video to be this long. I am working on a page. I actually have it set up. I'm trying to get things converted over before I publish it, but I'll be sharing that with you hopefully by the weekend. But in the meantime, hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I love you all.